Welcome back to Sooner Intel. I'm your co-host, Jason Watkins from Hall of Fame College Football. I'm here with KChris of Horns Down Podcast, and of course, our guy Chris Mason from Sooners 360. You love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of any one of these amazing podcasts. Fellas, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Damn, Chris Mason coming here strong, boy, strong and loud.
I'm gonna have to turn that down a little bit. Let me
Came in with a powerful good.
Sorry. I have to check my settings here.
Let's
All right, so go ahead. What's up, man?
Real quick. I gotta point this out, okay? Shout out to our Texas brethren. Ben G comes in here talking about red flags and all the rest of that. Please don't get it twisted, people. It's kind of, are we on this side or are we on that side of the fence? But Ben G says, by the way, let me say it. Here for all the red flags is what he said. Yeah. Then next he says, by the way, I'm drinking mixed red wine with my chicken Alfredo as I'm typing this. First off, let's unpack this, okay?
Terrible choice.
Mixed red wine. What in the blue hell is mixed red wine? Who drinks that? This guy must be an older guy, okay? Second off, eating chicken Alfredo. How bland are your taste buds, sir? Sir, upgrade your palate on both ends. Do you have bacon or anything with that brings out the red wine? I took a wine tasting class, so guys, I'm just, but since our Texas brethren want to come in here and talk this noise, how about Arch Manning? Okay, I'm sure that's all in your mouth right now, on the tip of your tongue, all around your cheeks. How is Arch Manning?
They call your team trash. That's what they are, trash.
We don't care, Texas.
We don't.
Anyways.
Speaking of red flags, though, there have been a lot of reports, oddly as it may seem to Oklahoma fans, but is it really a red flag that Brent Venables is going to once again be calling plays for this Sooner defense? It's weird to me, but Chris, do you think that BV just forgot how to do this, or I mean, what's the deal here?
No, I think BV is fine. I think it's something that we all expect. I don't think it's anything that we did not expect to happen. I think even with Jim Knowles coming here, I think you would have still saw BV's foot, imprint all over that defense. I don't necessarily see you really kind of. I mean, I see you meshing ideas. I don't see a full overhaul, especially with what's already going on here, those guys being in the system. So I think that a lot of fans out there who may be a little bit misguided or are thinking that, okay, well, he would have gave up the defense. He wasn't giving up the full reins of that defense. This defense is already in year 4. This defense is pretty much in year 4 of this install. Some guys are in year 2, some guys are in year 3, some guys are in year 1.5 right now. So you have some guys that you could turn into veterans overnight pretty much with this defense. But with Venables, I think that he surrounded himself around with some really good coaches, and we'll talk about some of the new additions. I think that he's going to have an opportunity real quickly, especially with like all the new stuff that you're able to have on the sideline with the new with all the coaches, with the iPads and all the rest of that stuff that you can watch and everything. I think if BV is good with his time management, which I know has been an issue, I think that he can address things real quickly with the defense and still give himself an opportunity to be able to go back and kind of try to run that CEO type of run the CEO type of I guess spread around there, right? So yeah. I'm still optimistic about BV calling the plays. I've seen it happen once before here, and it looked really good. We won 10 games. Granted, that wasn't a Big 12, but still we won 10 games. We beat Texas that year. And still that was kind of a building block year. I think we had some high expectations for that team. They fell short. There were some things that we wish could have been better down the stretch. Same could have been for this year. You know, you go back and look at this past season, and you say, hey, Zach Alley's a heck of a coach. You know, but for what it's worth, it's still some things that I kind of feel like, you know, did BV take the reins here? Did BV take the reins there? Because you heard that that's what happened, so to speak. But at the end of the day, to answer your question directly, I'm perfectly fine with BV calling the plays. I think it's going to be fine. And again, like I've been saying, defense was not your problem last year.
I agree. And so I'll go to you, Chris Mason. Now, obviously, as Ben G's saying down here, yeah, it's overblown about him coaching and calling the defense. It's weird that you get so much of this kind of conversation around it whenever it's a defensive guy like Venables, when you have offensive guys all over the country. And I would even say that Kirby Smart is probably doing most of the play calling at Georgia as well when it comes to that defense. This happens all the time, and you don't have near that issue or even the conversation about it. What are your thoughts about whether or not this was a big deal? Oh, you're muted.
I think for the most part, you know, Saban was pretty much calling their defense for the majority of the start of his Alabama run until he got going and had everything established, and then was able to turn it over to folks who basically used his methodology, his language, you know, basically his scheme. You know, this is the framework of the defense I've built. You need to work inside that framework. Because I've established this, and then, you know, after like 8 years, he's probably, you know, had removed himself. Maybe when Kirby was his DC at that point, but I think in the early years, you know, who was his DC? I mean, I don't think we really could name those guys, to be honest. So I think it again. It's just results. It's just optics. It's the optics results. It's the optics part of the season, right? Everybody wanted Knowles. The Knowles thing made you believe that Brent can't do it, can't be a game manager and call plays. That's if you were all in on Knowles, you sort of tied into that philosophical belief. I think that's not what Knowles was about. I think Knowles was just an opportunity that fell into OU's lap that OU would have been silly not to look at. And when it first started, OU was negotiating with no one but Knowles himself. So it wasn't like they were competing against 5 different programs. So I think OU went into it with an idea that this would be a big value add. But I think right now we're getting what we all thought was going to happen, which is Brent's going to call the defense. He's going to, you know, it's last stand at the Alamo, and he's going to go down, you know, full guns blazing. Take him, you know, you're not taking me alive, fellas. So, you know, he's going to go full guns blazing, and he knows defense. And I think it's hard for us to reboot back to when we had a competent offensive coordinator and know what that meant. Because last year has scarred us all as fans so severely that we have an offensive coordinator. He has a game plan. He's going to implement it. He has a full offseason to implement it. He has his quarterback to run it. And all these things are going to make, just like the offensive side of the ball in 2023 were for the most part. I mean, Brent didn't have to worry about that. He focused on the defense. And as you said, with a lineup, a defensive lineup, probably not as talented as the one we're putting on the field this fall, he was able to win 10 games. And really, we're a couple of special teams gaffes away from being a one-loss team in 23, rematch with Texas in the Big 12 championship game, and who knows, right? I mean, that's the reality of where that was, right? I mean, special teams fumble, couple of special teams gaffes in both of those road games make a huge difference. You know, competent officiating would have also helped a little bit. A bit, yes. I mean, pass interference in some vague semblance being called what it should be might make that game a little more interesting in Stillwater. But, you know, we're not Aggies, so we're not going to cry over too much spilt milk. But I think, you know, we got what we got. I think, you know, the getting Goodwin on the cheap like this is a big-time hire because he knows a lot of what Brent wants done. So a lot of the stuff that Brent was probably having to do when he first started, is it really relevant? Because Goodwin knows the defense inside and out schematically. He knows how it's coached. He knows how it's implemented. So to have that guy, basically, he's not for free, but he might as well be for free. I mean, you've basically got a $700,000, $800,000 defensive coordinator analyst on your roster, on your coaching staff for like $150 or something like that. Because he's just taking he's taking the Clemson pay. So I think that's a huge piece. And I think, I can't tell you I know a lot about the Dreiling guy to tell you that where they went. I do know Brent went outside of his group. He talked to a lot of experienced people. Dreiling has some significant names as mentors. Chuck Pagano is one from the NFL, which is that's a big time name. That guy he's worked and mentored him. Yeah. Yep. Jerry Kill, for those people that don't know, Jerry Kill basically you would never have rowed the boat and this whole that guy in Minnesota if Jerry Kill hadn't had to resign because of the seizures he had from his chemotherapy. I mean, Jerry Kill was bringing Minnesota back. He had to just basically quit coaching because it was killing him because he had recovered from cancer and he was having seizures from his chemo. So Jerry Kill is a very well-respected name in coaching circles.
He's a hell of a coach, man.
He's old school. He's sort of that Division II guy who finally got a Division I job and was killing it. Literally, sorry for the bad pun, but he was really doing very well. But then he got sick again. He just couldn't, and he had to resign. So there's some good mentors for Dreiling. I will say, just on the Dreiling issue, the only area that really concerns me is the recruiting side of it. He's not. OU needs to get some big-time linebackers in this class, and Dreiling does not have that on his resume. The other stuff looks fine. I mean, and again, a lot of people who Brent respects and have people, who have a lot of, positive opinions on Dreiling. I think the framework of it's very Brandon Hall-like, if you want to use a comparison. If you're wondering what we're getting in Dreiling, we're getting the Kansas.
You're getting a 4-time All-American linebacker.
Yeah.
That kids are going to respect. He's young. I think he can connect with them. Yeah, he's got to show his recruiting chops. I think that's clear.
Yeah. But the other pieces work. I think if you wonder what Brandon Hall brought, and we've seen what the safety room looks like, right? And after Brandon got a chance to recruit a little bit, and it's I would say the safety position is probably as recruited as anywhere on the roster at this point right now. Brandon Hall doing it. But I think that's what we will get with Dreiling. That's what the resume seems to indicate. We just got to see it.
Well, I would say this. Just a couple of things. So just kind of bringing it back to BV, kind of answering your question directly again. I've seen BV with a competent offense, right? Not all the way competent at times, especially down like the stretch crucial moments, but I've seen him with a competent offense, what he can do with the pressures that he can apply with the things. Yep. Once he got that buy-in from the players, right? In that second season, you saw what the buy-in was like. When he was able to play with leads, when he was able to, it was electric on both sides. It was they were doing things that you hadn't seen before. So if you're able to get back to that, you're going to see a really, really good OU team. And I think people, especially fans, right, not looking at Texas, not looking at anybody else, I think OU fans need to understand it's okay to be pessimistic, but it's also okay to be optimistic, right? This stuff happens each year in college football. Your blue blood or just a mid-tier program that has been pretty good, has been budding over the past couple of years. They're down maybe a year or two, and then one out of nowhere they come back and have an 8 to 10 game win season, right? And you're sitting there saying, "Oh, okay, yes." To Chris Mason's point about the Dreiling guy, I think is a very, very interesting kind of storyline that's going there because there's one differentiation I guess you could make. I just made up a word right there, but there's one difference between Dreiling and Alley coming into this job, right? Obviously, you could sit there and say, well, Allie was going to be the defensive coordinator. Dryling's not. Well, here's the actual difference. The difference is that coming off of that 10-win season the prior year, you're looking at Allie asking what can he actually build upon in that linebacker room and on top of the recruiting, because right now we're hot.
Yeah.
Dryling's coming in, and Dryling is saying, hey, we're not hot right now. We just need you to get a pulse. We don't even need him to be great. We just need a pulse at the linebacker. And I'm sure you're going to provide all the information for us as we continue to do these pods for everybody. Hit that like button, everybody, on each channel. But still, with that being said, those are the two different optics. So I'm eager to see. I think that we are kind of back where we were going into that second season, into the 23 year with BV, as far as saying, got to show it, right? We were sitting there saying, hey, if you know, Jason, we did plenty of podcasts where we said, hey, if you win 9+ ball games, and you got to 10, your recruiting is going to be up here, right? Yeah. And so we saw that. And so I think you can still see that. I think you can see these guys take off. And I think that you will hit the portal a little bit, maybe. But I think this guy is going to bring in, I think he's going to be able to go and recruit and get you guys that not only fit this scheme and fit the system, but guys that a lot of people would like to have on their squad. So I'm excited about it. Everything that I've heard about him on and off the field has been really good thus far, especially his pass stops. They've been great, but everything I've heard about the guy's been great. So I'm going in this kind of open-minded, like I always do, just saying like, hey, it's a wait and see type of game, type of ordeal. So we'll see if it works out, but which I'm hopeful that it does. But at the end of the day, I think those are the two. That's the difference we got to look at.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, I've thought it was fairly funny that you had so many people saying so much, and we are in that time this is the era that we live in right now, where it's clickbait, a lot of clickbait stuff from outside of Norman. We all know that really what the concern should be is the other side of the football. But I feel like you've got a good situation there as well. You got, a healthier offensive line, younger, more athletic, and they got some dogs that are coming in, and hopefully you stay healthy as far as those skill position guys are concerned. But then you've got a guy like John Mateer who's coming in. We did a top 5 quarterbacks on my show the other morning, and doing voting on that kind of stuff, and a lot of people had him in there, and they're not just Oklahoma fans that are voting in that thing, and a lot of people had him in their top 5. So, to me, I like and that really, we know without an offense at all, they won 6 games. And they really, if you go back and look, they should have won Mizzou. They very easily could have won Tennessee. And I mean, for whatever reason, the South Carolina game, you can call it what it was bad in the first 5 minutes. They didn't look that bad the rest of the way. So there's opportunities, and you've got some tough road games, I think, coming up this year. But I find it weird that people really believe, especially Oklahoma fans, that believe that they're going to go 6-6 again. And my question for you guys now at this point is, do you really believe that? I feel like it would have to be worse than last year, which I don't really know how that happens, but it'd have to be worse than last year for them to fire him with this much. They've got a $1.6 million into our offensive coordinator. They just got 2 guys that might be as good as they get as linebacker coaches. They're on 3-year deals. It doesn't feel like to me, unless you go out there and win 5 games or 4, that they're going to get rid of Brent Venables. You're muted, Chris.
The Jim Knowles, right? But anyways, the Jim Knowles move, to me, that kind of told me everything I needed to know. I think that I think this is a 2-year investment. I think he's going to have a 2-year lifespan on this. That's just my opinion, unless it goes south. We go 4-8 for some reason, and things are just not working out. I think this is a 2-year investment. I think he's going to get 2 years to build on this, and I think that I don't know. Something just tells me that he's going to get 2 years. I think that they're putting a lot into this with the players that they've retained, the players that they brought in, and then also you're looking at Arbuckle and that whole design. So I think that I think this is a 2-year investment, but I also believe in my heart of heart, I think that things are going to get corrected this year. Going back to some of the games you talked about, we could talk about the Mizzou, we can talk about the Tennessee with some things that happened there. You pretty much handed that game to Ole Miss. It was one of those games that could have went down as a classic SEC struggle for supremacy right then and there in that game, right? In my opinion, I watched when Venables went over there to give a handshake to who was it, Kiffin, and usually Kiffin is
you mean Joey? You mean Joey?
Yeah, Joey Freshwater. Excuse me.
That's sorry.
But when Kiffin walked up to him, it was like a sigh of relief because Kiffin knew, hey, this is a good team. They have some issues. And I think a lot of SEC teams will say that, hey, they had issues and we took advantage of that because we knew that they had issues and we knew exactly what they were. And we knew that if we just outlast, wait for those issues to really, but his head, everything is going to go right. But, that right there just kind of showed me like, hey, we're not some bottom tier team, some bottom feeder. We just got to get some things right. Yep. Venables has to get it right this year. But like I said, I think it's a 2-year investment with him right now, regardless of what happens. But I think he gets it right this year and calms this whole storm.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Mason?
I think optics are how OU looks on the field is going to play a big role in I know everyone wants to just say, well, it's this many wins. It just depends how OU looks, right? I mean, if it's 8-4, I think he's fine. Anything 8-4 and above, he's fine. But if they're 7-5 and the defense regresses, or they look like some of their sloppy losses, the team looks like maybe it's starting to quit on Brent, which I don't think happened last year. I don't think that happened. I think the South Carolina game was maybe a tipping point, but the defense was still out there flying around, doing what they could do. So I think that's more of what we're going to see. I do think, to just show you the night and day of where we are, right? At Ole Miss, Sexton got hurt, and we had to play Logan Howland, a redshirt freshman who was still going through the transition from tight end to offensive tackle, right? So let's just say Jacob Sexton is our left tackle starter this year. And if he goes down, well, we have 4 guys behind him, and one of them's Michael Fasusi, and one of them's Ryan Foje, and then you've got Baklenko from Stanford, and then you've got Isaiah Autry-Dent, who's going to be a redshirt freshman who's played way more than Howland did, was further ahead than Howland in terms of his O-line development because he's actually been a tackle his entire time in high school. So, and then if not that, then we can put Ben
320.
Yeah, and then we can put Ben Simmons at left tackle, right? So all of a sudden, I think we just got. I mean, the wide receiver stuff was it was insanity. It really was. It hit the point of like this isn't actually technically possible, is it? And the offensive line fell apart, and I think I think if Jacob Sexton doesn't get hurt, we beat Missouri and we beat Ole Miss. I think. Am I naive? Are my glasses crimson at this point? I think if we'd had both of those, if we'd had Sexton healthy for the end run of the season, we beat Missouri and we probably take that Ole Miss game and late into the fourth quarter. So I think that's an Ole Miss team where that entire D line is going to be on draft day, first, second round guys in the NFL. Sure. You just look at all the defensive linemen we face who are going to be gone to the NFL this year. And obviously it's the SEC, so they're reloading a bit as well. But I just think when you think about all the pieces we're bringing back, everyone's like, well, we're a scrappy underdog. We're a scrappy underdog with David Stone, Michael Fasusi, Danny Okoye, Peyton Bowen. Our defense could end up having like 4 or 5-star kind of players easily, starting for us. So we're scrappy, but we're also very talented. I just think it's hard to quantify an offensive coordinator and offensive staff completely disconnected and what that did to us all offseason, development-wise. And I think what you'll see is that we know Arbuckle's in control. We know Arbuckle is out on the road recruiting. Signs of that are really strong. We know that he's going to be in control of everything. We know Bill and EJ are going to just get right in line with what he wants to do. DeMarco, I think, won't have any problem with this. And, and I think, our expectations couldn't be lower about what Joe John Finley and tight end provide. So it's all up. It's all up. It's all, it's all upwards from there.
I think the thing that really, really, really makes me excited about Arbuckle, and it's something that it's very common. A lot of coaches do it. You saw Levy do it when he was here. They build, right? They build off of certain plays, right? Certain formations. They're giving you these looks. They're running certain plays to kind of get you tendency driven, right? Instead of being just instinctual, making plays, reacting fast, they're just getting you to the point where you're just playing off of tendencies. Oh, I know this look, right? Like for example, Levy, when Levy would run those quad looks for the screen, right? The bubble screen that he would usually throw to like Drake Stoops, right? Then you see Weiss going down the sideline for a touchdown because those players, the DBs are so used to him just running a curl route, right? Running a curl route, running a hitch route, just maybe running a quick slant that they're not even watching those double moves and him just basically going down the sideline on a go ball, right? So I'm excited about that, getting back to that. Maybe Latrell, maybe Joe John could have, well, not Joe John, but maybe Latrell could have did that. If Jackson really would have, if everything would have clicked with Jackson Arnold from the get-go, maybe he would have been able to build upon things. But it just felt like at some points during the Seth Latrell tenure era, or however you want to say, it just felt like we were he was just sporadically just throwing plays against the wall, just running plays, just trying to figure out some grouping, some formation, some personnel group that would actually work with Jackson Arnold, right? Whereas Joe John was like, hey, let's run a base install and then kind of, tamper with a little bit of the I guess, intermediate install of the Levy offense, which didn't really help anybody because Levy's not here, right? So with that being said, I'm really excited about that with Arbuckle, just kind of getting back to that kind of philosophy. So if that's something which, when you watch the highlights, if you stop being in awe of material just for maybe 4 or 5 plays, you see it in the highlights of what they're doing because it's similar plays that they're running. GT counter, all the rest of that stuff, they're building off of that. There's different run formation. There's different run schemes within that scheme that he's trying to get to. But with that, I think that's a perfect segue to the next, to just a surprise topic, which really isn't a surprise, but Football Guy 1, he says, you guys know any standouts during workouts?
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
All right. I can give you one piece of detail. So PJ's around 270, and he has had the best offseason workout numbers he's ever posted. I know there's this Flying 10 sheet that got published by Danny Okoye where he tried to cross out everybody's names, and everyone sort of has rebuilt that, and PJ's like lower on that a little bit, but Okoye has a ridiculous time on it, but everything I'm hearing says that PJ is over the ankle stuff, and they love the workout numbers they're seeing from him, and he is a big defensive end at this point.
That's great.
That's the piece I got. So
from what I did hear something about Giovanni Gibson coming in. Coach Ricks was talking about him going in, doing the testing that they wanted him to do with Schmitty. He threw up about 50, 60 more pounds than they expected him to have up there. And he got, I forget what it was, but he went way over what Schmitty asked him to go to. I think he wanted him to get 15 reps. He was at 22, 23 and was trying to get it to 25, and he couldn't put it up that last one, and it pissed him off. But Schmitty was like, yeah, you're good to go. These guys coming in apparently are hungry to impress and get on the field.
Spots are open, man. I saw some tea leaves about Trent Wilson, which is very interesting. As far as just, hey, what he's doing, how he's really people are taking a liking to him, not only in the D tackle room, but just on the team overall. So you're really excited to hear about a freshman, being able to do some good things. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can be, for me, I want to know if he's going to be that fifth guy. Who's going to be that fifth guy on as far as that rotational piece for the D tackle group?
Well, Marcus Strong is looking pretty yoked up in some of the videos they're showing out, and that's a big guy who, certainly there's a ceiling there if he can hit it. So it's interesting from that perspective. It's also I know everybody wants, well, who's running fast, who's doing well. Well, the coaches, even more than before, are cracking down on this info leaking out because they don't want to identify high risers who may have a struggle getting on the field just because of veterans in front of them from being tampered with at spring. There's this weird Matt Rule after flat out stealing Williams Winery from Nebraska.
Isn't that hilarious?
Is now concerned about his spring game being an outlet for tampering. So it's weird, but but OU coaches, just like everybody else, are going to be a little paranoid about numbers getting out about new kids because they don't want that information getting out. But I understand that. Sadly, I understand that because it is a little bit of, it's grist for the mill for us, for podcasts in the dead season. But I do understand why they're saying that. I mean, you said you've heard good things about Trent Wilson and Giovanni Gibson. Obviously, the buzz out there about Elijah Thomas hasn't stopped. Yeah. He looks unreal. And obviously, I haven't heard the OU buzz, but the Michael Fasusi buzz just doesn't stop.
That's big.
I mean, he went from, maybe composite number 15 in the nation up to composite number 6 or 7, number 1 offensive tackle in the nation after his dominating work at the All-Star games. So, and obviously, Ryan Foje, I think is, he's underrated as like the number 65 player in the nation, if you could be that. So, the class all came in. I mean, they everything I've heard is that they look good. The coaches are really happy. The numbers look good. They just I can't get any numbers because everyone's like, no, we're that's on mega lockdown. So I bet Mr. Koye, I bet Daddy probably might have got a word or two from the coaches about posting that thing. Got that shit out. We don't want everybody knowing because the third fastest guy, if you believe the people who could read through the scratch marks, is Bergen Kaiser, the walk-on kid we have from 6'4", 240, 245, could play tight end or DN. So, yeah, I think we're about to have. It's going to be. We'll get more stuff leak out a little bit as we get closer to spring a little bit. But I think all in all the kids are in. You're hearing positives about that. The one thing I'll say for Brent is, I'll age myself here. In the 90s, we saw a lot of quit out of Gibbs and Blake teams.
Mm-hmm.
They just quit. They flat out quit.
Yeah.
any number of ways. I mean, they sucked and quit. I mean, that's the two forces that in football. I'm like the suck and the quit. You hopefully, but what I can say is I've never gotten a sense that Brent's guys have quit. Overmatched, sure, but quit. I've never got a sense that those guys have quit.
Well, the truth is, though, they haven't really been overmatched that much, though, either. You know,
well, I mean, the LSU game, they got burned in the secondary a little bit. That's about it. But you're right. I mean, the rest of the games, if they were stopped giving stuff away, it's more giving away. It's more OU's charity and generosity than it has been. They're just completely overmatched. But I will say that they were never. They never quit. And you know, Gibbs had some talented teams at the end that just kind of quit on him, you know, in those last couple of years for those dragging people back to the dark ages. You know, and Bob had some teams, you know, sort of semi-quit on him, and he had to reel some stuff back in 2009 and some other stuff. So I feel like that I give a lot of credit to Brent that it's been tough, there's been struggles, but those guys have not quit out on the field, to be honest. I at least not from mine. That's just my personal opinion. I don't see a lot of quit. I see it on defense. I think we see a lot of guys trying to make plays and trying to make up for the defense last year. Mm-hmm. But overall, you know, I don't think the team quit. And I think I think Brent, props to Brent for that, because, you know, I think it would have been easy to lose some of those guys last year. Very easy.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely been easy to lose some of those guys.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was saying if they were quitting, that you wouldn't have found a way to just go in and basically blow out Alabama second to the last game of the season. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, we all were stunned. We were all stunned with that result, right? I remember our post game. Like, did that just happen? I mean, you know, and you watch that, and it's. I think you're right, but it's key. But I do, you know, to shift topics a little bit. It's funny that there's been so much sort of pessimism from the fan base. But I'll tell you what, once you get these guys out on the road recruiting and you get kids back on campus, Brent is not. I mean, these guys can recruit. Let me just say that. They have a message. It lands with kids, and they're effectively able to deal with it, and they are effectively, you know, working the recruiting lines and doing what they need to do. So their evaluation skills are still very good. From what I can tell, that it's nothing, you know, they appear to have just shaken off that season and have hit recruiting. You know, there's no sense that, oh man, you know, woe be us. There's none of that. They are out on the road. They're out on the road recruiting the guys they want.
The fun part about this season, you know, shout out to my guy Brady Trantham through the Keyhole podcast. Go check that out. But Brady said it best. I heard him speaking on the franchise the other day, and he said, you know, we're going to be able to tell a lot about this team in the first 7 games. We have Michigan, Auburn, and Michigan, Auburn, and Texas in the first 7 games. So those first 7 weeks of the season, we're going to be able to figure out exactly, you know, we're going to have great litmus tests. And we talked about that at length on this show as far as what we're facing. So we're going to have some good tests and some good obstacles to be able to kind of have a measuring stick going into what I would call, because once you get out of those first 7 weeks, you have a chance. Those first 7 games, you have a chance to be 7-0. You have a chance to be 5-2. You have a chance to be, you know, at the worst 6-1. Really, to me, you have a chance to be all of those. You could go in there, make some noise or whatever before you hit that bye week and get ready for that gauntlet after. Because after you play with Auburn, you go Kent State, then you come, then you're on a bye week, then you got Texas, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. That 4-game gauntlet there. I know a lot of people are probably still looking at Bama and looking at LSU as well, but that 4-game gauntlet right there after that first bye, that's going to be everything, right? That's going to be the crucial make it or break it part going into, I guess, what you would call championship November, right? So excited about the task, about the games that are coming up. A quick question just for you guys, since we're having this conversation. What is a what is one area, or what is one grouping, like personnel grouping or whatever, that you're excited to see at this spring game?
So the spring game coming up?
Yeah.
I think obviously you want to see some semblance of a competent game plan, but and not that they're going to show a ton. So I just think we want to see kind of what you get out of these receivers a little bit. I think that it'd be cool. It'd be good to see Gentry out there, but I don't know that they're going to really risk that. Feels like they probably won't. But I just like to see him out there healthy and ready to play a little bit. You know what I mean? Even if he's not playing a ton, whatever. But I think that that's the one thing that you maybe question a little bit on the defensive side. We talked about, we were kind of hoping that they would go after a big time corner as well in the portal or whatever. It's not like a lot of those guys are out there ready to be plucked or anything like that. And when you've got one, you don't want to let them go. So I like the idea of kind of where they're headed with that. But hey, man, I feel like all this negativity stuff and like with the recruiting stuff, the 5-star stuff, not a whole lot of, there's only 32 of those guys every year, number one. Number two, we know that these stars are not the end all be all. And this coaching staff is able, what you were just talking about before, they recruit well. They identify well, and look, these coaching, especially the defensive side of the ball, when you look at them, they are as good as anybody at development. And, and Bill Bedenbaugh in his offensive lineman.
One thing I want to piggyback off of what you said, because it goes exactly with what you said. Last year, I was there. Me and my uncle, we were watching the game, and both of us, we said, "Hey, man, I like this Eli. I like Eli Bowen. I like him more than what was advertised." My uncle was like, "Hey." We thought like, hey, him playing safety with his brother, that's eventually what's going to happen. The Bowen brothers are going to be the starting safeties there at OU. Him at corner, we was like, he's giving up a lot of size to carry on, because that was who he was on. And I was like, hey, I like that kid. Little did we know,
his pocket, man, for sure.
Little did we know he was going to blossom into what he did. So why can't Devon Jordan? Why can't the Newcomb kid that you were excited about out of Arizona? How about Tristan Haynes, one of these kids being able to pop in as a freshman and be able to come and play? Malik Hawkins, who a lot of people have talked about from his camps and all the rest of this stuff. So, I mean, there are guys that I think that you have that you're confident in already. I think that you can go add from the portal. Hopefully, to me, there was really not too much wrong with Des Malone. I think they helped him at times, tried to help him, knowing that he was nursing that groin injury and other injuries as well, especially in that Auburn game when we were all sick and mad that he was playing off so much, right? But they were trying to give him help. But Jacoby Johnson as well, could he take a leap and be that guy? But if I'm looking at anything, it obviously is going to start here. I know they're not going to have the starting 5 against the second string or whatever the case may be. It's going to be good on good. My whole thing is I'm looking at matchups and seeing who's moving somebody. Right, I think that's really where it starts this year. Who the hell is moving somebody? Is Wawewu being consistent at that or not? Right, or is it one of these freshmen? I'm looking at the tackles. I'm trying to see, is a kid from Stanford, is he polished enough to be able to play? Is the kid from Western Carolina, is he worth all the money? So I'm trying to see who's moving somebody, right? Yes. Because that's going to tell me everything I need to know, because I think this running game is going to I think it's going to be good this year. But I think that it all really depends on the offensive line, which right? But also I think this is a no-brainer as well. Eric Evans, he says receiver group and new quarterback. I think, obviously, yes. Chris Mason, what are you excited to see?
Well, I mean, you guys all gave the hit the right groups. So Since it's sadly February 6th and I failed in my prediction that Joe John Finley would not be on staff by February 1st, I've got to take it and say I want to see what the tight ends look like. Right? We brought in these two guys. If you watch the Gabe and Teddy breakdown on them, they've got some skills. They're not bums. You can find talent in the weirdest places in college football. The Super Bowl this weekend, pay attention to where some of these guys go to college, right? Because you're going to hear schools and names you've never heard before. I mean, the Eagles offensive tackle was playing rugby. He never played college football at all. He's a rugby player from Australia. So you can find talent in the weirdest corners of football. So I'm going to be interested to see what the tight end group looks like. With a competent offensive coordinator guiding him, can we get even the barest minimum of tight end development out of Joe John Finley? Can any of those guys look better? Just because the bar is just so low that, could we see some signs of life? I mean, Scott Walker just says tight ends will suck like last year. Just saying. And I think, that's what we all think, right? That's what we're all dreading. So I'd like to see the tight end room. I'd like to see the spring game, and I'd like to see us coming out of that saying, okay, so our expectation out of 10 is like 1.5. But damn, in spring ball, they look like maybe they could be 3.5. It's just and if Devon Mitchell has a huge offseason, he could change the entire look of that room, right? He has that talent.
Sure. He really could.
He has that kind of level of talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if somebody mentors that guy and takes him under the wing and kind of gets him going, which should be Joe John Finley. I mean, I'm not excusing that. Then I think, that would be the room I'm interested to see it. I mean, I think we got talent at running back. I think we got talent at wide receiver. We've reloaded an offensive line. I think Mateer's going to be a hell of a quarterback as long as he's healthy. And even then, I think Mike Hawkins comes off the bench with his Superman cape after being coached all off season by Buckle and is much better.
I agree.
So I think that's what I'm fascinated to see what goes on at defensive end, right? We've lost some guys, new guys in them. What does Marvin Jones look like? What does Kendall Daniels look like? I mean, I'm fascinated to see what those guys look like in spring, but I think it's the tight end group. If can Buckle even make a bad Joe John Finley look good? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Wanted to jump into a couple things. One of the things that I saw today, and I know we talked about it on our little group text message stuff, but Drake Stoops calls out Oklahoma fans on that show today for the negativity over the football team. Dillon Gabriel kind of cleared the air, or I don't know if it was clearing the air so much, it was passing the buck, not really wanting to talk about his Oregon transfer. And then it was announced later this afternoon. I don't know if you guys had heard about this, but Oklahoma and Texas are going to be full share members of the SEC, and they're actually getting a raise from the SEC.
I thought it was a half share. Have they changed that?
Starting it to full shares.
That's good. That's real good.
Yes.
Just another $27 million. So yeah, we'll take that.
There's your money. There's your money right there. that's part of your money right there, right?
There it is, right? No, so but I mean, obviously with Drake Stoops, making comments like, look, we saw what you saw, and there was a lot of, their injuries are real, and there was a lot to that one room. He talked a lot about that. He was pretty pointed. It almost sounded like his papa whenever somebody kind of, were dissing on his football team, and it seemed like he was there doing the same thing as well. What do you guys think about that?
Matt, look, at the end of the day, I'm standing with him. I stood on business the whole time. Got to weather the storm. I mean, your teams are going to go through this, okay? We're not sitting here saying, oh, well, the glory days. I know it's been since 2000 since we won a national championship, but it's not like we haven't sat here and ran the Big 12 and are coming in here just, begging to have winning seasons like some of these programs are. As excited as people are about Nebraska football, they kept telling me Nebraska's going to be good this year. Hey, right? So whole thing is that look, you just got to hold steady and just I hope and pray everybody can stay healthy. So I mean, I stick with that. I stay with it. I'm in line with everything that he's saying. But biggest thing is, man, we just gotta be healthy this year. You can't really go into the year handicapped already.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think our fan base sometimes teeters on sort of this not to offend anybody or kind of bipolar roller coaster, right? I mean, we're super high, we're super low. We just sort of can't find any middle ground, just chill middle ground. Yeah, I mean, I understand why he's saying that from the players' perspective, but the fans, we took our punches this year in the SEC. It was tough. That South Carolina home game was just awful from a fan attendance standpoint. I mean, it was a stupid 12 o'clock kickoff, and then by 12:15, you were like, "Oh, all right," and you just come off the Texas game, which was a depressing second half, depressing, last 35 minutes of that game, right? I mean, it was, you were in it for the first sort of 20 minutes, right? 20. I think I have my timestamps right. First 25 minutes, you're more or less in that game, and then in like 5 minutes, you just kind of like lose it, and then you have no chance of coming back. So I understand where it comes from, but I do think, hey guys, let's reset, let's reboot. We have a talented roster. We have some talented players. We just picked up the best quarterback. I'm sorry, he's better than Carson Beck. Material's better than Carson Beck. If you can't win at Georgia with that O-line and the fact you're rarely called upon to make any big plays at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Material's one-man ganging it out there at Wazoo. He didn't have a lot of help. I know they played a weaker schedule, but he's still keeping that thing going. So we've got the best. Our number one problem was intelligent, clutch quarterback play, and we just picked up a guy who everyone seems to indicate has some ballsy, clutch QB play to him, for lack of a better term. So when you say and our O-line depleted with injuries, depleted with depth and youth, and now it's a year later and it's just very different. Our most talented guys are our youngest guys, but we've got a lot of players in front of them. So to me, that's the big, you want a reason for optimism, 2 words, John Mateer, and I think that about covers it. If you can't see that intelligent quarterback play would have allowed us to have been, even with all those injuries, somehow maybe 8-4, that would have been crazy. If we had gone 8-4 with what had happened, Brent should have been freaking coach of the year. With the injuries and the schedule we had, the road schedule we had especially. So, I mean, I just think it's time to reboot, time to move on. Last year was last year. If you want to obsess on it, help yourself. But this is not. Jimmy Satterfield's got a good recruiting question when we ever want to transition to that.
Yeah. He's
asked about 2 quarterbacks. If we want to transition, since I just talked to James Neal. But yeah, I think that's it's, if you want to dwell on last year, dwell on it. But we have done everything to change the weak points on the team, which was O-line and quarterback. You have the best O-line class we brought in. You had a good O-line class that redshirted. You brought in 2 really good depth pieces on the O-line, and we brought in the best quarterback we could get, who is mated with an offensive coordinator he knows backwards and forward. And our offensive coordinator needs to rebuild things, and he's got his trigger man. This is, if you go through college football, this is a recipe for success.
Yeah, I agree. What did you guys think about the – well, if you want to answer that question first real quick, but you can. But what did you think about what Dillon Gabriel had to say being back in town? And he was saying basically that there was – I think it almost felt like he admitted it. Yeah, there was a conversation before the year. I felt like we should stick to it. It's not like they pushed him out, I think, and that's what a lot of the conversation has been around. You know what I mean?
Dillon just made it. The fact of the matter is, Dillon just took the money and ran, right? Just like the song says, let's take the money and run, right? OU wasn't going to give him anywhere near what Oregon was. Not keeping, and if you in December, if we had said, well, we're bringing back Dillon Gabriel and Jackson Arnold's red shirt as transferring, our fan base would have gone crazy. From retrospect, that we can't. And if Brent had just come out and said, well, we needed to pay Dillon more, and we had to take that money from somewhere, so we're basically cutting Jackson Arnold. That's why he's leaving, because we can't pay him anymore. We can't pay him any more money. We can't even pay him. Everyone would have, so go on and take the money and run. All right, Boomer 129, I got you. But from that perspective, I think everybody would have gone a little bit. We'd had a ride on our hands, don't you think, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
If Brent had a press conference, we're bringing back Dillon Gabriel, we're doubling his NIL deal, but due to that, we're having to cut Jackson Arnold and let him go.
Yeah, it was a lose-lose situation, and I mean, let's be real. It's not what Dillon may have said or didn't say or didn't want to say. It's not like we haven't, touched on that throughout doing these shows together. I mean, the word that I hear from everybody that I've talked to is just legit. He took the money. Yeah. Nobody, BB didn't really even know. I could have swore that, hey, he was going to go test his chance, because the goal was honestly for him to have the season that he did, which he was working on a way. If he wouldn't have lost that game in at least one game if he would have just dropped one game, whether it be Kansas or
he couldn't have the game he had against Kansas, which was, he threw 16 passes, but that's on Leb.
Either way, he was on his way to New York that year as well. Maybe not to win the Heisman, obviously, but still, he was on his way to New York, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, fact of the matter being, look, it just didn't. I mean, that he was not pushed out. Nobody pushed him out. Kind of is what it is. So it's not like fans didn't know. It's just one of those things where, is he going to actually say it? Is he going to actually talk about it? So, it is what it is.
Once he got pulled from the Senior Bowl, I think his world kind of collapsed. It was like, well, what the hell am I going to do next? And then his agent said, well, you got another year eligibility. We could go on the free agent market and get you some money. And he did that. So, again, would Dillon would OU have been 8-4 with Dillon? Probably.
Yeah. I could have
maybe. Or he could have also been concussed and knocked out week 4. And he could have been like,
with that play calling, it very well could have been.
It could have, and that O line, he could have been like, pardon my French, F this crap. I'm hurt for the rest of the year.
What he's not trying to say, right? I think he's what he's not trying to say, and maybe maybe there was a conversation about the conversation that anything that I've ever heard was that they expected him to go to the NFL, as you said. He was gonna. Probably a 4th rounder, but he was planning on going. Whenever it didn't even look like you were going to get an opportunity after the season you had, of course he stayed around, made $2 million at Oregon, and went to the college football playoff. It worked out.
So and goes to the
it wasn't going to work out like it did for him for sure.
And and so I think I think Dillon's just he's trying to maintain like the charity stuff he did while he was in Norman. He's not wanting to throw anybody under the bus or really, I knew J.A. I mean, as much fun as it would be for him to say, yeah, man, I knew Latrell was an ass clown. That's why I bolted. And I know J.A. was going to suck ass. So that's why I bolted, because I wanted to make everybody look bad who didn't want to bring me back and pay me more money. You want to hear that. You don't really want to hear that, though. I mean, I don't know what you expect him to really
Well, he wasn't going to say that they're sitting
Exactly. I mean,
of course
he's
not
with exactly. So he's not going to say that. But I mean, this is where we are in college football. Ohio State is about to field a team and hope one of their 5 stars pans out.
Yeah.
They've lost Chip Kelly, their offensive coordinator, QB guy.
Wow.
To the Raiders, who are just obviously
huge money, $6 million.
Does that include all the hookers and blow he needs? Chip looks like a pretty buttoned down guy. So, I mean, by the way, is it Rex or Rob Ryan with USC?
It's Rob.
He looked like the dude at the podium the other day from the Big Lebowski with the hair. He looked. Yeah. I kept thinking to say, man,
it's definitely Rob.
He looked like, I had to say, I need a white Russian, and the rug really makes the room. Right, that rug really made the room. So,
that's what your opinion is, man.
Hold on. We got two things to talk about. Okay. Chris Mason, obviously, we can't let you be on the show, and we've been on the show for about an hour now. We haven't let you talk about recruiting.
Yeah, I know.
And I got one little tidbit just to add to the end of this. Trust me, guys, just stick around, okay?
All right. So do we want to start with the fact that I talked to Jaden O'Neal?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So for all those that don't know, if you go to Sooners 360 on YouTube, go to my channel, subscribe. You can see a 24-minute, unedited, unvarnished interview with Jaden O'Neal, the OU QB verbal commitment. Now, our good guy Satterfield asked me if OU's going to sign 2 quarterbacks in 2026. No, they're not. They're going to sign 1. And I think that guy is going to be Jaden O'Neal. And I am biased to that because I just talked to Jaden O'Neal. And Jaden O'Neal, to me, in a 24-minute interview on my YouTube site, or you can also, if you follow me on my podcast, you can get an audio version of it as well if you want to follow it that way. Under no circumstances did he seem worried about anybody else being at quarterback at OU or seem not all in for Oklahoma, because he rattled off names of guys he wants to commit to, that he wants to get committed to Oklahoma. His quick answer about Arbuckle was really interesting. And KChris, I think that the biggest thing I got out of that was, when I asked him about Arbuckle, he said, the guy's just so versatile. Mm-hmm. His offense it doesn't matter who the personnel is. He just puts guys in a position to succeed. It's a great looking offense. He just, he said, well, there's some spread stuff he does. And he got a little technical with stuff, which was nice to see his acumen for the game. So, but overall, when I was talking to him, I mean, again, really personable kid, just very lucky to get a chance to. I think OU's very lucky if he's going to be our quarterback in this class, because he's obviously a great kid. He just really gets it. He's just bought in and committed to making this OU recruiting class the best it can be. I mean, he made some interesting comments about how 7-on-7 football, where there's no real blocking going on. The way they stopped him in the big Miami tournament was they just kept cornerback blitzing him, giving him no time to respond. He says, that's taught me that I need to work on my pocket
presence,
escapability and presence, quicker reads. He goes, the 7-on-7 stuff. He goes, the only way they were stopping me was they would just blitz in with fast ass cornerbacks, and there's no blocking, so he had no time to really respond. But he's a very personable, very intelligent young man. To use all those kind of cliches. I don't know what I expect this, but it's always, I was talking to my brother. He's like, it's just, when you do these interviews, these kids are just so polished, very respectful. And, you just cynically as like, an older dude thinking I'm going to be talking to this guy and he's going to be all like, full of himself and all about me. And he just wasn't. He was a very interesting kid. I hope, I should hopefully have a chance to talk to him again, maybe after Elite 11 or after the OU spring game. But I see what the hype is with the Bentley kid. He kind of plays like Mateer, and obviously Arbuckle offered him. But I don't think there's any way that OU will be able to keep Bentley or O'Neal together. There's no point. I mean, they could try, but there's no point in it. They could end up losing one, or they could end up losing both. I'm just not sure that risk is worth it. I think you have O'Neal. He's recruiting for you. There was stuff about him maybe playing ball at Mustang this fall at Mustang, Oklahoma. We'll see if that pans out. But that stuff is floating around the internet. But he's just he's just a good kid, just very, very sharp. I came out of that 24 minutes thinking I will be very, very excited if he's the guy that signs with OU in December.
What else you got for us on the recruiting trail?
Well, it's interesting because Todd Bates keeps offering D-line. Like, he's got a lot of D-line on the hook, but he is not settling. And they just offered a kid who I think is at IMG, and his name is Elijah Golden, 6'4", 300 pounds, physical, big, explosive. And the interesting part is, you hadn't offered him yet. They offered him, and then the very next guy posting about it is Jaden Jackson, telling him that they apparently know each other, and he's telling him that he needs to do the right thing and come to OU. And then they offered this kid out of New Jersey, Damari Simeon, who I don't know anything about other than OU just offered him, and his tape is awesome. So OU's continue to add kids. They're starting to get official visitors scheduled. The Daniel Odom kid is really good on film. They got that wide receiver verbal commitment. He plays 7-on-7 ball with O'Neal since they were like middle schoolers. He's at St. John Bosco. His film's really good. It's excellent. They got a bunch of wide receiver guys starting to schedule visits. They got 4 slots, and I think they've got like 7. They've got 3 slots after Odom, and they got like 7 elite kids on the hook to fill those slots. I mean, O'Neal was talking about that he wants to get Jabari Brady from Florida, who's this 6'4", 210 wide receiver who looks like a D end in the photos with Coach Venables. He just looks huge. I did a class prediction on my Patreon site. Please go to patreon.com, look for Sooners 360. There's my plug. It's only $2 a month, and there's all kinds of recruiting content I've been posting there lately. So you're getting pretty much everything going on with recruiting right there. I posted a prediction, and I had to shuffle a bunch of names out and shuffle new names in just because OU's making some offers and making some moves. So some players I thought last fall would be in this class, might be in this class, and now sort of fallen off. The only positions I'm worried about are cornerback and linebacker, but OU has offered 2 linebackers. One, Sinceri Johnson from Ohio, and then Nikki Abrams from Maryland. If OU could get those 2 guys, those are absolute, beasts, manimals, whatever term you want to use. We'd be reloading that linebacker room in a massive way. But they're offering some other guys. They just offered the first offer, I think, that is probably from Dreiling. It's a guy actually from Ohio. He's a big linebacker. He's 6'3", 6'4", 230, 240 maybe already. His name is CJ Sana. His film's good. He's sort of he's a big guy, but he's athletic, makes a lot of plays. He would be interesting take. So Jimmy Satterfield, I was thinking 3, but with them taking Odom's verbal immediately, I got to figure 4 because there are 3 or 4 guys that are must takes. Davion Gross from Frisco, Lone Star, who's a top 50 player in the nation, 5-star by one service. Jabari Brady is a must take. He's a number 55 player in the country. They've been recruiting Aljor Miles forever, and he's 6'3", 200 pounds. I don't know why he's a 3-star on some services. It's just ridiculous. And then you've got Jaden Warren, who just recently got bumped to a top 100 player in the nation on Rivals. He had a fantastic year. And then they've got this guy, Dandridge, from Georgia they're bringing in. His film is fantastic. He's already has set an official visit, or it's pretty close to being scheduled. So Emmett Jones could bring in a blockbuster class. That's not a stretch. I mean, Gross is a beast. Aljor Miles is. Brady is. Mason James, he's a 5'11", maybe 6 foot, 185 pound slot guy from Norman North who, and I mean, I'm sorry, guys, he's Sterling Shepard, Ryan Broyles. I mean, has a guy like that ever not been like an All-American for OU? Guy from the Oklahoma City area that we recruit, 4-year guy we recruit, an ad on them from that sort of area. So, Mason James has got offers from Michigan. He's got offers from everybody. So wide receiver, and I think it's going to, obviously Mateer having a big year will do nothing but help, right? I think spring game, everyone's like, oh, you need to cancel the spring game, or are you going to cancel the spring game? OU needs to put on a little bit of a show offensively for recruiting, right? We need to, if Sooner Scoop just posted something a couple of days ago about Jonathan Hatton and OU trying to get Jonathan Hatton back in the fold, and he's like a 5-star running back, I think. So everyone says, he's not recruiting any 5-star guys. Well, Jaden O'Neal is a 5-star quarterback, or he could be easily. Felix Ojo is going to be a 5-star offensive tackle. Jabari Brady or Warren or any of these guys could be a 5-star wide receiver. The Sinceri Johnson kid should be a 5-star linebacker. Jake Krull, the defensive end from IMG, they're recruiting. He's a top 50, borderline 5-star defensive end.
Elijah Thomas from this past one was, he's that kind of guy too. It feels like. Yeah,
I mean, so everyone's saying that it's like what's his name? The Texas guy I hate. The recruiting guy.
Catch.
Yeah, there we go. He does this super blue chips rating nonsense. And he said, well, Texas has 9 super blue chips and OU has 4. It's like
making up shit, super blue chips.
I'm like, first off, you're arbitrarily crafting this. And I'm like, and if I'm talking about anything, OU super blue chips are Fasusi Foje, CJ Nixon, Elijah Thomas, Manny Choice. Omarion Robinson.
Yeah, he won the 5-star skill challenge there at
exactly.
Rivals, yeah.
Yeah, and then probably Cortland Guillory with the season that he put together. Yeah. And Tristan Haynes. So, okay, you got 9 guys. Well, we got 8 or 9 guys. And Trent Wilson. Sorry, I forgot Trent Wilson, the best 3 technique in the country. Sure, Texas got Justice Terry, and he's a presuming, he's a dog, but Texas better make sure those checks don't be late, because that guy, that's the only reason that guy's in Texas. So, but yeah, I mean, so I think the big thing, KChris, is that we got a lot of guys visited. They all had great visits. OU is reestablishing their presence with players. Bill's offering good offensive tackles around the country. He's not wasting his time with guys he can't get. He's not talking to the Cantrell kid. He's not talking to guys who aren't looking at OU. So, they've had good visits. They've been in homes and made, they went from nowhere with this kid, Valdin Sone, the Swedish defensive tackle I've mentioned on this podcast a couple of times. That kid's 6'5", 320. He looks huge. He looks great. They've got this guy, Tavion Branch from Ohio, 6'5", 280, 290. He looks very good. And then they've made huge moves with this guy, Camarion Johnson from Cedar Shoals, Alabama, wherever the hell that is. But he's, it's nice that Chavis is doing in-homes, because we know Miguel's 6'5", right? I mean, he was measured 6'5" at the NFL Combine, right? We know he's 6'5". Okay, you got some guys, yeah, Benji, but they haven't done anything yet. So, and you needed it because your other O-line classes the last 2 years, your D-line class last year wasn't very good, and the class before that wasn't very good. So, good luck with all that. But yeah, I mean, so they went and, is that when you see Chavis standing next to a guy and the guy is putting his arm on Chavis, right? Okay, That guy is 6'5" plus. He's not 6'3" or something. How is that guy really that big? Well, anyone who's towering over Miguel Chavis is a very large person. It's like, we know Todd Bates is a big guy. It's like, Todd Bates is 6'3". Like any defensive tackle that's taller than Todd Bates is a big dude, and this Sone kid is, taller, almost as tall as Chavis. So they've done a great job of recruiting. Cornerback's a little weak. Linebacker's a little weak. It's a weak year regionally for cornerbacks. So that's hurting OU a little bit. It's hard to just go out anywhere. And I'm not sure how much OU needs. I'm not sure how much OU needs a lot of cornerbacks in this class, right? We have 6 freshman, sophomore cornerbacks we just added in the last 2 classes. Do we need 3 more cornerbacks? I'm not really sure we do. Do we need 1 or 2? Maybe. Safety, again, is looking good. Caden Hall, the guy from Florida, appears to be really interested in OU. But as Sooner Cowboy said, OU, as I've been saying, OU needs linebackers. They're starting to offer some linebackers. I'd like to see a big linebacker class. And I've seen 2 guys that are just absolute killers. I mean, this guy, Johnson, and then this other guy, Kid Abrams from Maryland, who in an interview with Oklahoma Rivals said that his Charles Tapper is his relative. So maybe that will help. Couldn't hurt. Charles was a very good Sooner, had a really good Sooner career. So I really think that, that they've got a couple of guys. Can you focus all your energy and land 2 of these absolute hitters at linebacker that you need? Can you close on them? We need to close. Mr. Dreiling needs to close on a couple of linebackers for us. This guy from Ohio that they just offered, he's interesting. He's a big dude. He would be a lot of the guys I see are still sort of that Will 6'2", 210 and 210 kind of guy in high school, which is fine, right? They'll put on 10, 15 pounds, do the Kip Lewis thing and be 225, 230 by the time they're really playing. But it is nice, Jason and Chris, seeing a middle linebacker prospect who's like 6'3", 6'4", 240 running around and smacking people in high school. So it's like, okay, that guy's a Mike linebacker. That is a Mike linebacker right there. And that's what we need. We need a couple of Mike. We need at least 1 Mike linebacker now.
He is indeed. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So, but I think they've done a good. And again, everyone's always doom and gloom. And I'm like, I was talking to some fans, and they were, what are we going to do in recruiting? I'm like, guys, recruiting's not the problem. I don't think talent on the roster overall is the problem. I don't think it is.
We've been saying that for since he got here, man. He raised the floor and the ceiling when it came to recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, we need our 5 stars to play like 5 stars. We need some guys to be healthy. But if you don't think Brent can recruit, you're going to be disappointed again in July.
You're not paying attention.
In July, we're going to have a cavalcade of guys come through. We'll get ours. Texas will get theirs. They always get theirs. Ohio State will always get theirs. It's interesting. Texas seems to be focusing a lot of their recruiting outside the state of Texas for some positions, which is interesting. But again, if OU can get KJ Ford, who I think from Duncanville, defensive end, who's ranked like 115 in the country, which I think is just ridiculous based on his film. He looks like a top 75 kid to me. If you can get him and Jake Krull, you've got 2 pass rushing demons in the class. That's what we need. And if we need some big guys on the interior, and like I said, Todd Bates has been has visited this Swedish guy twice. He's been in Norman once already. Big guy. Todd Bates is offering a lot of D-line. He's going to sign a big D-line class. And the film just looks good. It just looks great for the guys he's going after. This Valdon Sone kid under Todd Bates could easily be an NFL first-round pick. He's that athletic, that big, that athletic. The guys that big shouldn't move that fast. He just, Benji, you don't know what you're talking about. I've watched his film from his freshman year. You were right about the guys. I've been talking about Josh Shermer on my podcast, how much I liked him. Justice Terry was a huge addition for you guys, beating Georgia for him. But let's just call a player a player. KJ Ford was a player. He looked as good as Colin Simmons when Colin Simmons was a senior. I watched their film, and I kept wondering, hey, who's the guy making all the plays on the other side from Simmons? And it's KJ Ford. So shut up. I'll give you guys your props, but don't tell me KJ Ford isn't a player. His first highlight, he decapitates the quarterback.
Look,
the
Texas. OU Texas can wait. Look, people, look, we've been on here an hour and 20 minutes. You guys have heard us talk about BV calling the plays, about the new coaches. You've heard us talk about what we're excited about, kind of an early preview of what we're excited about to see at this spring game. You've heard the recruiting. You know now to go to Sooners 360 and figure out where, how, and when you can watch that video of Chris Mason with the O'Neal kids. So, people, you have all of that. But we got to leave you with one last thing, okay? And that is, people, it can always be worse, okay? It can always be worse. Look at what's happening down there in Stillwater, whatever you want, people. Excuse me. And I'm just letting you know now, there are some big fish in that pan that are trying to fry. And there are some things that are happening down there. So it is very interesting.
So you're saying that was it Shrum was
yes, I think
Shroom was more push than fell?
Oh, definitely was a lot more push. a lot more push than anything from what the behind the scenes people, guys, girls, whoever you want to call those people, are telling me. No, it's some let's say it like this. There's some shit going down there. But I just want to say it could always be worse, people. It could always be worse. Well, with that being said, people, like I said, we've been on here hour 22 minutes. We'll be back next week, probably at our regular time. We'll be here 8 p.m. Wednesday night. So definitely check us out, Jason and Coach, on the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast and all the other podcasts that Jason is pumping out. Obviously, you know me, Horns Down Podcast. Then we got Chris Mason, Sooners 360 himself. Subscribe, like, share, do all those different things. Tell everybody about all the channels and about this show right here, where you know it's going to be very candid, very raw, very blunt, to the point. That being said, people, we're out.